The Buffs faithful out there, this is when you learn the most about what's going on in the world of Colorado Buffaloes athletics. Let's bring in our guy, Adam Munsterteiger from Buff Stampede. Does a great job covering all things Colorado Buffaloes and kind enough once again to give us a few minutes of his time. Mr. Munsterteiger, hope you had a good bye week. And what's going on, my friend?
Hey, guys, I'm doing well. Yeah, getting geared up for last trip out to cover a game at Los Angeles. I think when the news of Colorado leaving for the Big 12, it was met at that time with a lot of excitement just because of the long saga that had become the Pac-12, and to have a secure landing spot was great. But as you take more and more of these road trips for the final time, it kind of makes you a little sentimental and a little sad about the fact that this Pac-12 conference isn't going to exist here in about a month and a half.
That's a great point. And to kind of play on the nostalgia factor there a little bit, LA's a great place. We were just talking about that, the Rose Bowl's opening up some extra capacity for this game. We'll talk about that game in particular, but do you have any favorite moments from your time on the road, whether it be UCLA, USC, or going to that LA area for some of these Pac-12 games?
The one that always stands out the most is back in 2016 when Colorado beat Oregon on the road, and it was a very close game with Akella Witherspoon getting the game-winning pick late. And up to that point, and really since then, I don't know if I've seen a Colorado locker room as excited as that one was. That was kind of a turning point for that season, and obviously they go on to win 10 games. Them winning out at Nebraska in 2018 is another one that stands out, although that season didn't end up finishing the way that they wanted it to. Those are the main ones. Out in LA, not a whole lot. The Rose Bowl has been a pretty awful environment for the games that I've covered out there. They just don't support UCLA, and it doesn't help that stadium's about 45 minutes away from campus with traffic, and so it's always been lacking. But yeah, we're hearing that there's expected to be about 70,000 people at the Rose Bowl on Saturday, and I got to think a decent chunk of that is going to be Colorado fans in there. So there's not a whole lot of advantages for Colorado when you look at this matchup against UCLA on paper, but maybe the fact that they're going to have some support out there that can help them a little bit.
Hold up, you're telling me you're not looking forward to going to Waco or Lubbock, Texas, Ames, Iowa?
I enjoy those college towns, and that's one of the things that actually I really didn't like about the Pac-12 is that as cool as it is to fly into San Francisco to cover games at times on the road, you don't sense any passion for college football out there. And you get some of that out in Autzen Stadium in Eugene. You get a little bit of it, down at Arizona for basketball. I should say a little bit. You get a lot of it, there at UCLA for basketball as well. But just generally, I really did miss the passion of those Big 12 fan bases, and I like those college towns, but they're just harder to get to, and that's part of the problem. It'll make it more challenging for folks to get out to games, and obviously there's more Colorado alumni in the Pac-12 footprint than there's going to be in the Big 12. So you wish that the Pac-12 had strong leadership, and it didn't come to this, but it did, and so Colorado did what it had to do, and so I won't necessarily be excited about how I'm going to get to those road trips in the future, and we probably won't have as much Colorado representation at some of those games, but you're going to feel that passion when you go to those towns, and so for that part of it, I'm looking forward to it.
Very professional answer from Adam. Very respectful to Waco, Texas, although I don't think I'll be making any trips to Waco. Adam, we can talk a little UCLA. I read your Know Your Foe where you talked to the publisher of the UCLA site at 24/7 Sports. He seems very confident in what UCLA has, and this is we were talking about this earlier, it's kind of a different UCLA team than what we've been accustomed to. They have a really good defense. Do you see this game kind of go in that direction, that CU's going to struggle to stop the run, and UCLA might have their way throughout this whole game?
Yeah, I don't know if have their way throughout the game. I would go that far, but it's just not a great matchup for Colorado, given that, what has Colorado really struggled at this year? Protecting Shedeur Sanders, and they've struggled stopping the run defensively. Now, the second half of the Stanford game, it was the corners that weren't playing well. But by and large, when you look at those first 7 games, those are the main 2 things. If you could pick 2 things to fix, you would fix them. Well, UCLA's got a really good stout front 7, and they can get after the quarterback. And they've got one of the best ground games in the country, a top 10 rushing offense. And so that just does not match up all that well. So when I look at this matchup, I kind of go with my head and I see a huge advantage for UCLA. Now, my gut tells me that this is a UCLA football team that played on the road the last 2 weeks. And one of those games was up to Oregon State, a team that will give you a pounding. They did get a little bit of a break there against Stanford by not having to play a full 60 minutes, in terms of intense football. But there's a part of me that thinks that this is a UCLA team that's a little bit worn down, whereas a Colorado team coming off a bye week that's very motivated, that got embarrassed in its last half of football. It's going to want to come out and prove that they're going to make up for that issue. So the gut tells me that things match up pretty well for Colorado. But yeah, on paper, from the football standpoint, and with UCLA having Ethan Garbers back behind center, I think that helps them quite a bit. This is not a flashy quarterback by any stretch, but he's a guy that doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot, whereas their true freshman, 5-star 23 signee, Dante Moore, who had started the previous, I think, 5 games before the Stanford game for UCLA, he was starting to throw some picks. And that's what you can't have if you're UCLA going down the stretch, is when you've got this great defense and this running attack, you can't have a quarterback making mistakes. So it sounds like it's pretty sure that Ethan Garbers is going to be the starter on Saturday at quarterback. And again, it's, of the good teams in the conference, Garbers is probably the worst quarterback, but at least he's pretty efficient in terms of running that offense.
Let's talk a little bit about this Bruins defensive unit as well, because I was talking with Chase before we had you on of UCLA under Chip Kelly, fast-paced, a lot of points typically. Their offense has been nice this year, but their defense has just been sensational. 7 points to Stanford. They got, the Oregon State game was tough, but they gave up 17 to Wazoo. They lose 14-7 to Utah. 7 points with NC Central. San Diego State puts up 10. What have you seen about this UCLA defensive unit in particular that's helped make this team well-rounded on both sides of the ball, cracking that top 25 at number 23 right now?
Well, we've seen it with Colorado. When the other team is able to get pressure on your quarterback, it changes the game, and that's what UCLA has done a really good job of. Latu is one of the top pass rushers in the country. I think he's got, 7 sacks at this point of the season, and it's not just him. They've got other guys that have helped out in that regard as well. So they've continued week after week, gotten the other quarterback feeling uncomfortable, and that's worked out really well for them. And you say this with defenses, is you're only as good as your weakest link, and UCLA's weakest link is pretty solid. They don't have huge glaring issues anywhere on their defense, and so it's been a very solid unit this season.
Reading your Know Your Foe, the publisher mentioned Kane Medrano, who I believe hails from Pueblo, and I kind of remember a little bit of that recruiting saga. CU never ended up offering him, but he looks like one of the best players on UCLA's defense. Can you tell the listeners what happened in that recruitment and why CU wasn't able to get him?
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot because Colorado never really recruited him. I know that he was a 2019 recruit, right, coming out of East High School down there in Pueblo, and his name just kind of popped up out of nowhere being committed to UCLA. I think he went out to a camp out there, and then UCLA had missed out on some guys, and he was kind of a Plan B guy, but it's a Plan B that's worked out really well. But he didn't have any other Power 5 offers coming out of high school, if memory serves. I think UCLA, and it was maybe like a UNC, a Wyoming were after him. So that was a name I remember having pop up, and I asked some sources about it, and they hadn't, made a move there. So he was never really on Colorado's radar.
Well, that's very interesting when you kind of look at it. Obviously, a lot of lore behind that. But I want to bring it back a little bit to the bye week, if we could, Adam, because I felt like CU's offense, and really collectively across the board, the last couple of games leading up to the bye, it just felt like things were maybe a little bit stale, right? They weren't able to get off to these hot starts. I know I've asked you a million times about the run game and getting off to those starts and whatnot, but how do you think the bye week benefited this team in regards to an opportunity to recharge the batteries, right? Because you look at the early season hype and the national TV, and then it just seemed like over the last 2 or 3 games leading into the bye, things just fell flat a little bit. How do you think CU took advantage of this bye week to try to get some juice coming out of the bye this week against UCLA?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, and it is stepping away from the game for the 4-day break that the players had during this bye week. When Coach Prime was asked after the Stanford game, does this bye week come at a good time? Do you guys need a recharge? And Coach Prime said no. He said, well, we want to go back out there and play next week. And Coach Prime was asked again after the bye week, now that you've had the bye week, was it good for you? He said, no, we wanted to keep playing. But aside from Coach Prime saying that, everything that I sensed around that program was they needed the bye week, that this was a program that had been in the spotlight really since all those guys got on campus. When you think about, the behind-the-scenes stuff that these guys are in front of the camera during summer conditioning, where that was never the case in the past. And so a lot of times how I feel as a media member, at the very end of the season, it's kind of like you're getting to the end of a marathon. That's what I felt leading up to that bye week, because it had been such a long stretch with all the attention and all the fanfare with Colorado football that, these are human beings, and sometimes you need a break just to be able to be at your best. And so we'll see if that ends up being the case, but that's the sense I got. Even though their head coach doesn't think they needed it, I felt like it was what was perfect for this program, especially, and not so much from the injury standpoint, but just from a mental recharge standpoint.
All right, let's talk a little bit recruiting while we have a few more minutes. We just missed it last week. I think he committed a couple hours after we had the show, but CU landed Antoine Hill Jr., one of the top recruits in the country, 4-star. I think he's rated as the number 6 quarterback on 24/7 Sports, but top 5 elsewhere. Why do you think CU was able to land him? What do you think got the job done there?
Yeah, it was kind of a perfect storm, I think, in terms of Antoine Hill loving the attention that he got on his visit out during the Stanford game. And it was a Friday night game, so you didn't have a ton of recruits on campus. Most of them were playing, but he had a bye week. So he was able to, get the chance from the student section and kind of feel like a priority for them. And not just from the fans, but the coaching staff as well. And they really, the key for this program was finding a replacement for Shedeur Sanders, and that might not come until after next season, and that's kind of where things are trending right now. But you got to have that guy lined up, and Antoine Hill saw that as an opportunity that he didn't want to turn down, and that definitely had a great chemistry with Coach Prime, and comes from Georgia, and is a guy that when he gets on campus as an early enrollee, he's going to be 17 years old, but he's going to look like a man. He's already 6'5", 215. And by the time, there's even a small chance he could possibly reclassify. Whenever that comes, he's going to be young for his grade, but he's not going to look like that. So he's a guy that if he can reclassify, would have maybe a year to watch Shedeur. If he's not able to reclassify, he'd still be an early enrollee, and then you have an open competition with O'Neal and the 2 true freshmen that are on campus right now. But it was such a huge get for that, and not only just to get Antoine Hill and to have your quarterback lined up for the future, but also what Antoine Hill is going to be able to do in terms of recruiting other guys to join his class. That's always the catalyst now with recruiting, is you get that quarterback on board and you have him become one of your best recruiters if he's up for the challenge. And it sounds like Antoine Hill wants to get a lot of those big boys down in the South to join him to protect him. So that's going to be fun for Colorado fans to watch as they recruit more guys from that 2025 class.
One more before we let you go, and it's on that note, because you talk about the next in line for Shedeur Sanders. And I saw a clip earlier this week about Coach Prime talking about how he's trying to get some more acres of land out here in Colorado. I know there was some rampant speculation that should Colorado offer Coach Prime a lifetime contract, which I think is a little far-fetched at this point in time. But what do you think the commitment from him paired with Coach Prime's comments, because there's a lot of thought process of like, is this a flash in the pan? Is Coach Prime just here until Shedeur and Travis go to the NFL? But it seems like with the commitment in the recruitment process that this is really going to be something that is building for the future. I don't know how long or what the long-term future of that looks like, but with the recruitment process, Coach Prime's comfortable being in Colorado. Where do you think he stands right now in regards to the future of this program? Not long-term thinking all the way down the line, but it does seem like this is going to be more than just a 1, 2, 3 year thing. It looks like Coach Prime's getting ready to buckle up for the long haul.
Yeah, and you know that Antoine Hill and his parents addressed that, right, before they committed. So that is a good sign when you get a highly regarded quarterback that's, might not be on campus for a while. So, it's interesting. I get asked that question all the time, and people are always talking about the money that people can throw at Coach Prime. It's like, well, he's made a lot of money, and he's making a lot of money outside of his coaching contract right now, and I'm sure Colorado's going to take care of him. I don't think the money part of it's going to really ever have any factor in that unless in some way Colorado disrespects him in that regard, and I can't imagine as long as Rick George is in charge that they're going to let that happen. So, Your guess is as good as mine in terms of is Coach Prime in Boulder for 3, 4, 5, 10 years. But, it's not a situation where he came in with one foot in the door and then, another foot ready to leave at the next opportunity. Could an opportunity present itself that intrigues him and piques his interest in the college game in the coming years? Absolutely. It won't be the NFL. He's made that very clear. But yeah, he's not in this job right now looking for an exit. And so that's got to be encouraging. But what I've told Colorado fans all along is just enjoy the ride. And then when, Coach Prime moves on, then we'll address it. But I think there's going to be rumors every game they win. And if you get caught up in that and let that stress you out, you're kind of taken away from the process if you're a Colorado fan. And it's unprecedented what he's doing at Colorado, so just try to enjoy it. And I do think he'll be around longer than most people think.
The great Adam Munsterteiger. Thank you so much, my friend. Be sure to check out all of his work online. BuffStampede.com does a fantastic job keeping you guys covered from everything going on in the world of Colorado Buffaloes athletics at BuffStampede.com. Adam, my friend, thank you so much for a few minutes. We'll do it again next week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate
it. Sir. There we go. I learned so much. Like, I really do. I learn a lot
say that
from
every
you.
time.
I do, because it's like I get so excited to upload these to YouTube after, because I'm just like that. I mean, that was what, 13 minutes, 14 minutes? That is everything you need to know about what is happening with the Buffaloes right now. You don't need an hour and a half.
He's the best
14,
in business.
15 minutes.
Been doing it for a long time, and he knows his stuff.
And that the reason I wasn't going to ask that last question until I just kind of heard the cadence of the answer. And because what if I've had this conversation with you, I've had this conversation with DB. What has always been kind of the pitch for CU when it comes to recruiting? Just come to the campus and you'll fall in love with it, right? Once we get you there, it's going to be hard for you not to want to come back because of the Flatirons and the buildings and the facilities. And it's nice to see Coach Prime is not just getting kids there, but the best of the best.
And the white beard, the gray beard, it looks so Boulder. He walked into that press conference on Tuesday with the it's not even really a cowboy hat. It's a Boulder hat. That's what they wear in Boulder. And he had the gray beard and these sunglasses that were like a little colorful, which is what a lot of people wear in that area. I think he's loving it.
What do you say? He's like, I'm a country boy at heart with a city boy or something like that. He was like, I'm a country. I forget what the line. I'll look it up in between the break.
City boy style? Or
City boy swagger or something like that. And I was like, I love this right now, man. Like seeing the pictures, like tagging just random Joe Schmoes on Twitter that help him fish. Like he tagged some dude on Twitter. He's like, thanks to this guy, dude has like 42 followers. And it's just, I love how much he's immersing himself in the community. But
keep buying land, keep buying ATVs, buy some snowmobiles when it starts snowing, which we might get this weekend. And I think he's going to love it.
I love it, man.